I want to see the industrial north from the inside by exploring one of the lifelines that made the whole thing possible. So it's a canal journey from Manchester to Leeds. And since the direct routes are not now navigable, it takes you a bit further out of your way than you might think, because it starts by having to go west from Manchester, where Leeds is northeast. You have to turn north, go through Wigan, Blackburn, Burnley, right up to Skipton, right up to the edge of the Yorkshire Dales, and then slide back into the industrial north through Keighley, Bingley, to the centre of Leeds. We're starting here at Worsley Basin, which is a few miles west of Manchester. Very appropriate, because this is really to canals what the Stockton and Darlington was to railways. It's where the thing all started, basically, because this is the start of the Bridgewater Canal. Took coal from the mines along an underground system, several miles of it, to this basin, then on back into Manchester. It's also a very pretty place, one of the prettiest near Manchester, because it was a planned village. The Dukes of Bridgewater gradually built it up, right up till almost the First World War. And it's a pointer to what could happen along the rest of the canal system in the industrial north, because from being one of the most heavily used traffic routes, they've become one of the quietest, one of the prettiest too. There are some astonishing landscapes on this particular journey. Here the water looks a bit alarming. It's not what you might think. It is in fact iron oxide, which I think has seeped in from the mines. Workings just down there. But all that clears up just round the corner. First town on the canal is Lee. What a marvellous way to see it, sort of gliding through the countryside into the town at just over walking pace. It's a cotton town, so the already strange landscape is enhanced by the foreground of water, mill chimneys, and the huge mills themselves, brick and terracotta and bulbous copper domes. There's something which is going to happen a lot more on the canal here, I think, which is a new terrace of houses, and they are literally Queen Anne front and Mary Anne back. The front's got a bit of show, it's near George, and the back neglects the canal. Seems such a shame. And look here, just how a blank wall and a cinder path. Look at the geometry it sets up along the water and the chimney at the end. It's not Venice, but it is an incredibly moving landscape. Taking the chance to stretch my legs a bit, because there are 21 of these locks at Wigan, and it takes something like 3 hours to lock through them. Altogether, they raise the canal 250 feet in one go, which I think is the biggest single engineering achievement on the canals that are still navigable now. So down there is the whole of Wigan. And up here, there's some marvellous sights really going to waste, because as before, people aren't really using the canal, they're turning their back on it all the time. Where I am now, there's derelict down on one side and a factory for making tiles over there, and the usual thing, a barbed wire fence, and no realization that this is a really marvellous place. And down in Wigan, there's some pretty good new housing going up at Scholes, which is a collection of courtyards with linked bridges at, I think, second floor level. Quite low housing, nice scale, which might not work perfectly because they may be trying to cram too much on a small site. But think of how that could be up here, where you've got space and to spare. If you had the courtyard three-sided, the fourth side the canal, and a matching courtyard maybe on the other side. What I'm asking for really is a complete new set of canal-side villages all over the industrial north, all along the Leeds and Liverpool. That now is the end of the Lancashire Plain. From here on in, the canal will be winding along what is really the foothills of the Pennines. The top end of Johnson's Hillock Locks, just north of Chorley, is one of the standard Waterways Board's conveniences. It's not the most beautiful building in the world. Much more important than that, it's got no style. It's so sad because the original canal thing, the discipline of black and white, suits almost every structure. This is the first place that pleasure boats have really appeared in numbers, though alas, all moored rather than on the canal. But even so, with this immense line, you can get a good idea of the colossal potential for enjoyment of this stretch of water. Just sliding in gently at quite high level into the very middle of Blackburn. There's a point here where the canal is on an aqueduct high over the road, which itself is just above the River Darwen, all the levels going on at once. It's amazing how, in spite of the factories on either side, the actual canal banks still seem wild. It's as if the canal was sort of something insulated from the industrial hubbub around. And yet, of course, it was the canal that basically created the industry in the first place. Blackburn town centre is a very interesting place because Blackburn was the first town to go in for comprehensive redevelopment. That's a plan for redoing the whole town centre way back before 1960. The first bits, like the market hall, look pretty shabby now, but later on things improved, both in the buildings here, designed, I'm glad to say, by a Lancashire firm, that's Building Design Partnership of Preston. Is a change from the great anonymous London concerns, but most of all in the details. Details like the simple seats here. Simple stuff, just fixed on the wall. And that wall is patterned brickwork which flows up easily and over and becomes the retaining wall of the pool. The pool has fountains which are just straight jets of water, not half-cut dolphins and wishy-washy water maidens. And above it all, dominating the town hall. This is really a town centre, and all these details at ground level seem to me to have very great style. I was talking about the lack of style earlier on. This really is a kind of canal style, an industrial north canal style. But the town centre going wrong, I think, in two ways. One is a bit further away. The other, near at hand, is the fact that there's going to be too much of it. They don't know when to stop. For Blackburn has already lost its open marketplace in the first part of the redevelopment. And although it's got a market hall, it's not quite the same thing. You need both. And now the thing is crossing the street at a rate of knots. And this wasn't rubbish. It's rubbish now. Look at it. This was solid Victorian stuff. It included an arcade, and the gold lettering on the tobacconists in that arcade would be a candidate for any local museum in 10 years' time. By then it's too late, and you'll be sorry. The thing now is to make sure that this is the end of it, that it doesn't creep over from here. Obviously it's not going to creep over to demolish the cathedral, but all these little buildings, Georgian, Victorian onwards, Blackburn must keep a balance of